Hello everyone, welcome back to All About the Sound, Making Learning English Easier with the 3P approach. And I'm Nancy. We're going to continue along our sound journey. We've already talked last time about phonemic awareness, and we're going to move on to the second P, phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is also all about the sound and not about what you're saying. So the alphabet is still not of concern at this point. The alphabet, I should say the Roman alphabet is not of concern at this point, but the phonetic alphabet is. So if you see any written representations in this PowerPoint, they will more than likely be the phonetic symbols in phonetic notations as derived from the International Phonetic Alphabet, which we talked about in the last presentations. So we are moving on, like I said, to phonological awareness, still all about the sound, but we're going to add a little component to that. We're going to be listening not just to each phoneme, but to the word parts and the words and how the phonemes combine to make words and make the sounds we're hearing when we're listening to words. So that's basically what phonological awareness is about. It is still all about the sound, and I'm encourage you, if you haven't already, to purchase this book, All About the Sound, which is on Amazon.ca. It's not necessary. I'm not promoting my book. I'm just saying you may find it easier to have the book because you can do the exercises in the book to help with your learning. If you don't have the book, that's fine too. Just continue along and do your best to understand what I'm saying. It's great to have a piece of paper and pen on hand as we do this so you can jot down words as we move along. So again, we're focusing on sound. We're moving on to phonological awareness. And we will talk a lot in this presentation about something called onset and rhyme. And without further ado, I'll move on. So again, phonemes are the basic units of sound we're hearing. So when we're talking about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness, we are very concerned about the phonemes, the sounds we're hearing in words. Phonemes combine to make something called word parts, or they're often called syllables, or I will refer to them as word rooms. So if you hear the words word parts, syllables, or word rooms, they'll be used interchangeably throughout my book and throughout these presentations. Word parts combine to make words, so every word has several word parts in it. Words combine, of course, to make sentences. And sentences combine to make paragraphs and conversations. So we see that words are the functional units of our conversations, but words are made up of phonemes, and they're made up of groups of phonemes, and word parts, which consist of phonemes. So we're really trying to break down words here in phonological and phonemic awareness to grab those phonemes and understand the meaning of the word through the phonemes. So as we're proceeding through phonological awareness, there's some questions we might ask ourselves as we approach each word, as we hear each word, more so hearing right now than reading. But what happens when we combine the phonemes into word parts and word parts into words? What sounds will we be making when we combine those phonemes into word parts and then those word parts into words? Again, word parts are our syllables. Can we hear the different sounds these basic units of sound make when they come together into word parts? So what happens when we combine these phonemes? When we join them together into word parts and join them together into words, can we actually hear the phoneme? Are we losing the sound of the phoneme? Are we hearing new unique sounds? What is it we're hearing when we combine? Can we hear the different word parts, syllables, or word rooms in each word? And this is very important to phonological awareness. Again, you will see me using or hear me using word parts, syllables, and word rooms interchangeably, okay? They all mean the syllable. And every syllable is essential to know has to have one of those vowel sounds, okay? In order to be a syllable, it has to have a vowel sound. So again, in our phonological awareness, we're moving from the basic unit of sound, which is the phoneme, to combined units of sound, okay? We're combining our units of sound. So of course, we need to have a basic understanding of what those phonemes are. I'm not asking you to memorize all the phonetic symbols and all the phonemes you hear at this point, that you see at this point. Please have your charts handy so you can access them until you get used to them. Constantly review your IPA chart if you can, especially the ones with the sound in it, and checking out those sounds on the IPA. Continuing to practice using that chart and those phonemes and recognizing the phonetic symbols. But I'm not asking you to memorize everything at this point. But for a quick review, we need to know how many phonemes we have. Do you remember how many phonemes there are in the English language? What about in Canada? Well, we have about 44 phonemes in the English language. And I guesstimate, and I say guesstimate because I can't stress enough that I'm not a linguistics expert, but I guesstimate from what I hear and what I research is that there might actually be 48 phonemes in the Canadian English. 22 of those are going to be our vowel phonemes. And when we speak about phonological awareness, we have to remember again that the word part, the syllable, or the word room must have a vowel phoneme to be considered a syllable, okay? And out of those 22 vowel phonemes, we have 14 monophthongs. Remember what that is? One sound. So we're only hearing one sound. And in a diphthong, we hear two sounds used to combine together to make one unique sound. Then we have 26 consonant phonemes. Again, just what I'm hearing, not necessarily what others would agree upon. And they're going to either be voiced or unvoiced. Now, do you remember all these phonemes and where you might find them? Again, you access your charts anytime you need to. If you have the book, just open up to the chart. I'll try to tell you the pages that we're looking at right now, if I can take a second to do so. So we're looking on pages 113 for the review, but let's go back to chapter 3, and we're looking at those pages starting on page 80. That would be your best bet. If you go back to your page 80, if you have the book on this book here, go back to page 80, and we're actually doing the little review in chapter 4 on page 113. But for now, go back to page 80 if you need to access these phonemes to determine what kind of words you'll see them in and what sounds they make. Again, these are all the phonetic symbols, not the letters of the Latin alphabet that we were using in our English, okay? These are the phonetic symbols from the International Phonetic Alphabet. So let's look at that first one that looks like an I with a colon beside it. Or in Canada, we often see that colon being replaced by a Y. We also see I being replaced by a Y as well. So we in the phonetic symbols, we may use Y more so than not in Canada. But regardless, if you see any of those two symbols, it is the symbol that makes the sound E, that long E. E. Long E as in green. E, you're hearing the E. What about number 2? It's supposed to be a capital I, but it looks like an L, unfortunately, but that's supposed to be a capital I. And that sounds what? Where do we hear that? It is the short I sound that you might hear in something like pig or jig or it sound. And what about number 3? Looks like a U with a colon beside it. And often too, when we see the colon, we're talking about R control vowels. Not always, as in the I, we weren't, but in some of these phonetic symbols, if you see that colon, it may be referring to an R control vowel. So what about that U? It's the long OO sound, as in blue or soon. blue, soon. You're hearing almost like a cow sound, a cow mooing with that symbol. Do you remember the next one? And this is where the R control comes in. What we're seeing here is R controlled OR sound, as you might hear in orange, okay? Orange. What about number 5? It looks like a lowercase e, or it can look like a kind of a backwards mirror image E. Where do we hear that? It's a short E sound as in bed or red, bed, okay? What about this 6, this upside down V? That is our short U sound as in mustard or up. So it's like a sound, okay? What about that A with the semicolon or the colon behind it? That's another R control. Like I said, in not all cases, but in many cases, when you see that colon behind a letter, with the exception of the I or the backward C, or the I, sorry, or the U, these are R controlled. So we hear the R controlled R sound as in charcoal and car, R. So the R changes the nature of that vowel sound. So that's why it's called R controlled. Then we see this A facing in the wrong direction. What does that mean? That's a short O sound. So it's like a on, off, that sound. Of course, I'm exaggerating the sound tremendously, but just to make that point. What about this A-E merge sound? That is a short A sound we often hear in words like black or axe. So it's a sound. And what about that funny looking E with the colon behind it? It's another R controlled this time. Sound as in purple and bird. Okay. So those again are the sounds, the phonetic symbols. They're not letters of the alphabet. And again, when you recognize these sounds, if you see these sounds, we're just talking about the sounds they make. Now in the previous slide, all those vowel sounds you were hearing were our monophthongs. And what are our monophthongs again? One sound. So there's no sliding, no extra movement of the mouth. We're just one sound we're hearing. Now we're going to look at something that are diphthongs. So the diphthongs we're going to review, and the diphthongs have two sounds in them, two sounds combining to make one sound. So there is a sliding motion or a gliding motion of the mouth from one sound to the other. So you'll often see two symbols being used in your phonetic symbols. So let's look at the first one. Now these are different variations of the same sound as far as the phonetic symbol goes. The OW is the one we might tend to use in Canada, but not always. You will also see those other ones too. So even though I may refer to them the ones often used in Canada, I want you to be aware of the other ones that are associated with them so you're not confused should they come up. So it could be the OW, it could be the upside down E with the horseshoe, or it could be a lowercase o with the horseshoe. And what sound does this make? So it's two sounds coming together to make the long O sound as in yellow. So I want you to imagine O, flow, boat. Okay, so we're hearing the O sound in those words when we see that phonetic symbol. What about this lowercase e with a capital I, or the lowercase e with a Y? Again, in Canada, we tend to use the Y over the I. But what we're hearing here is a long A sound. A, and of course Canada's known for its A. But it's a long A sound as in gray, day, cane. What about the next one? That's an R-controlled or ah sound. So we get a combination here. We have an R-controlled or and an ah together combination as in inshore, inshore, or tourist, tourist. So it's a little variation of those two phonemes. Then we have number 4. What have we got here? We got the oi sound. Oi sound as in turquoise and boy and oil. So we have two sounds coming together to make the oi. And even when you say that sound, you'll notice that it takes extra movement of your mouth in comparison to the sounds you might have made when you were reciting the monophthongs in the previous slide. So the next one is what we're going to hear here is the long I sound, as in white, high, by. So you're hearing the I in that word, in those words from that sound. Number 6, we're seeing this phoneme, phonetic symbol for the little a in a horseshoe, or in Canada, you more than likely might see the AW. So what we're hearing here is the ow combination, ow. So it's ouch, brown, hour. So we're hearing actually two sounds coming together to make that ow sound. Then number 7, what we're hearing is an R control for air. We see the lowercase e with the upside down schwa. So it's R control for air sound, as in care, hair, where. Again, I'm over exaggerating these sounds just to make them clear. And the last one, what are we hearing? R control for ear, ear sound, as in clear, hear, series. Okay, so again, we're bringing two sounds together in a diphthong to make one sound. So continuing along in your book, going to the consonant charts, we're looking at quick consonant phoneme review. So I'm not going to give you all the consonant sounds because there's quite a bit of them. I'm just going to give you the ones that might get a little confusing. And again, remember that the phonetic symbol is not the letter of the alphabet, okay? Even though it might be identical to the grapheme used to represent that sound in the alphabet, okay? So one way of understanding this, the distinction, excuse me, is by putting it into those slashes. So you see number 1 is the k sound. Where do we hear k sound? Unvoiced. It's, again, I'm not having the vibrational pull in my throat here. We hear it in ki and k sound. And what about this next phonetic symbol? Can you recognize that one? And that is the ch sound. Ch sound. So if I said church, it's at the beginning of church and at the end of church. And what about this one? It's the unvoiced ch sound. It's judge, judge. And this one, unvoiced th sound, as in thing, and healthy. Okay. Now you're going to see a lot of times you have a symbol for unvoiced, and even though you might be the same letter representation, if we have the sound is a little different, so then they have the unvoiced one and voiced one as well. So this is another voiced sound, as in these, these, other. So we're just making two different distinct sounds from number 4 and number 5. Now that funny looking S is kind of commonly seen in the sh sound, as in ship and nation. Ship and nation. And then when you see this one, this is the voiced representation of that same sound. It's a little different. Vision, vision or leisure. So there's more of a friction with this one. And the W, it looks like a W, the letter W, but it's the sound meaning wa, as in one, water. Okay, so we're hearing a wa sound for the W looking symbol. So we've talked about the phonemes. So now phonological awareness is all about combining those phonemes, bringing them together to make word parts, syllables, or word rooms. So onset and rhyme are one way we can look at the deconstruction or construction of a word, the word parts, okay? The onset of a word is anything that comes at the onset, at the beginning of the word. And usually when we talk about onset and rhyme, we're talking about short words or short word parts, okay? Short words or short word parts. So at the beginning of a short word or short word part, as long as it contains a vowel, then we will see the onset. So sometimes it's best to look at it that way. And when we talk about onset, though the word can start with a vowel sound, we're most often talking about the consonant sounds we're hearing at the beginning of a word. In the onset, there is no vowel sound, okay? In the onset, there is no vowel sound. And rhyme is the ending component of the word that contains the vowel sound. Now, onset and rhyme is best used and understood through short one-syllable words. The onset is the beginning of the word. It's usually consonant sounds we're talking about. And the rhyme is the ending of the word, which contains the vowel sound and possibly, but not always, an ending consonant sound. So there's no vowel in the onset, no vowel sound, and there has to be a vowel sound in the rhyme. There does not have to be a consonant sound, but there often is. When we put onset and rhyme together, we have our word or word part. I can't stress that enough. It can be a word or a word part. When I think about the word part, I'm often thinking about the word root, okay, before we add our suffixes or prefixes. And I want to stress again that in phonological awareness, it is not about the spelling of the word. We have not even been introduced to the Latin and Roman alphabet. It's all about what you're hearing. It's all about the sound, okay? And if you see any written representation, it's the phonetic symbol or phonetic notation from the IPA that you will be seeing, which represents the sound. Nothing to do with spelling. So let's look at onset and rhyme, some examples. And so you're going to see some pictures up there, and what you see are eyes that see, watch my mouth, see, and that's a wave that represents the C. So the sound we're hearing is C. Can you hear how many phonemes are in that word? C. If you heard two phonemes, you're absolutely right. There is one phoneme in onset and one phoneme in the rhyme. The phoneme you're hearing in the onset is that S sound. S. The phoneme, and that's one phoneme. And the phoneme you're hearing in the rhyme is the E sound. E sound, which can be represented by either of those symbols. E. So we got S, E, S, E, C, C. So what we've said, C, so we took the consonant S sound and combined it with the vowel sound E, and this is one of those rhymes that does not have a consonant, it's just a vowel sound. And each, the onset and the rhyme both only have one onset, and have one phoneme in their onset, one phoneme in their rhyme. And what have we made? C. So the phonetic notation, when we combine those phonetic symbols, is this for C. And we had one onset, one phoneme in the onset, one phoneme in the rhyme. So we ended up with two phonemes in the word or word part. So this is a word. So what about this for so? And different words will use the exact same sound and be represented differently in the spelling. So that's why we're not concerned about spelling right now. We're concerned only about the sound. So how many phonemes are you hearing in so? So what we have is the S sound, we've changed our rhyme from the E sound to the O sound. And these are the phonetic symbols that you're seeing. You're seeing this, that first one for this. And the next one, we're going to see different variations. You'll see the upside down E with the horseshoe, or the lowercase o with the horseshoe, or in Canada, the OW. But again, in Canada, you may see the other two as well. So that's why I want you to be cautious and to remember all these as belonging together. But we have this O, O, so, when we combine them together. The onset consists of one phoneme, the rhyme consists of one phoneme. And so when we combine this and the O together, this is what we will get phonetically when we see the written representation of those sounds. We'll see the phonetic symbol with the S and the phonetic symbol with the OW in it, making so, so, so. So we had one phoneme in our onset, we had one phoneme in our rhyme, and that equals two phonemes in the word. So let's play around with those phonemes a little bit by adding another phoneme to the onset. So we had this, but what if we added another sound to that onset, and we added the L sound? So we have s, and I'm exaggerating those sounds again. And we kept our rhyme as is, as O. So we had s, O, s, O, s, O. We now have two, I spelled phonemes wrong, sorry about that. I'll go back and change it. If it's spelled correctly, it means that I went back and changed it. If it's still spelled incorrectly, it means that I haven't. But it should be two phonemes for the onset now, because we have this and the L. We have two phonetic symbols up there. And we have one phoneme for the O sound. So let's see what we got here. So we have adding phonemes to the onset. So we had the S, we added the S, and we added the L, and we had the O. So now we have O, slow, slow. 2 plus 1 equals 3 phonemes. So that's why you see the turtle there. Slow, slow, slow. So let's play around with changing the phonemes in onset and rhyme. We're still playing around with making different sounds and creating different combinations of sound, and that's what we do with phonological awareness. I want to stress again that the onset is a part of a short word or word part that comes at the beginning of the word or word part. It contains consonant sounds only. There is no vowel sound in the onset. And the rhyme is what comes at the end of a short word or word part that contains a vowel sound. It has to have a vowel sound in it. It does not necessarily have to have a consonant sound, but it can have a consonant sound. So far, we've been working on words that have only the vowel sound in the rhyme. Okay? So let's change the onset phoneme from the S sound to the P sound. So we're taking it from the S to the P. And we're still keeping that L sound in there. And we're changing a rhyme phoneme from ow, o, which is a monophthong, to ow, ow, which is a diphthong. Okay, and I have a tendency to pronounce it with the Canadian raising, so you really hear that ow. Remember with Canadian raising that A looking symbol with the horseshoe can be pronounced as ow, as I say it, which would be represented by a short U, which would be the upside down V. And in Canada, we might use the W instead of the horseshoe symbol, but it's two phonemes coming together to make one phoneme, ow. Okay, so we're changing the O to ow. So our onset now is going to have two phonemes in it, the P and the L. Okay, it had two phonemes previously when we were using the word slow, but P, low. And now we have the ow. So we've changed it all completely together, didn't we? Now we got p, l, ow, p, l, ow. Let's see what that adds up to. So what we have then is p, l, two phonemes in the onset, and we still only have one phoneme in the rhyme. So we got p, l in the onset and ow in the rhyme. So that gives us how many phonemes? 2 plus 1. So let's put the word together in one phonetic notation. P-l-ow, plow, plow, plow. And you'll see a picture of a snow plow. If you've been in Canada long enough, I'm sure you've seen snow plows. They're a necessity to Canadian life. So that's 3 phonemes. Plow, plow. Of course, I'm again over enunciating each phoneme. So when it comes to changing the rhyme then, not the onset, because we're going to leave our onset exactly as it is. That onset was the p and l sound together, combination. Pl, pl, pl is the combination those two give us with their onset. 2 phonemes together. Pl, 2 phonemes. I can't stress that enough. And then we're going to change our rhyme. So we had that ow, ow, and we're going to change it, which is 1 phoneme. We're now going to make it 2 phonemes. We're going to add 2 different phonetic symbols there. So you see the a and the sound. A and sound. A, 2 phonemes. Let's see what we got now when we add all those together. So we had the pl, the p and the l for pl in our onset. And in our rhyme, we now have an. So plan, plan, plan. We have 4 phonemes. Now we could practice forever on creating onset and rhymes or creating combination of phonemes to make different sounds. What I want you to remember most from this little presentation is that we can use onset and rhyme, and it will help us with our English comprehension and our English pronunciation, as well as with our spelling later on when we represent these sounds using letters, if we have a good understanding of onset and rhyme. Now, onset occurs at the beginning of a small word or word part. It contains consonant sounds only, and it can contain a mixture of different consonant sounds, as we have seen, or it can contain one consonant sound, as we have seen. And the rhyme, on the other hand, is at the end of the word, and it has to contain a vowel sound. It is not a rhyme unless it contains a vowel sound. So when we have a word, we definitely need a vowel to make a word, and we need a vowel to make a syllable, or word part, or word room. We need that vowel sound. So the vowel begins the rhyme, okay? The rhyme begins with the vowel, and it may or may not have a consonant sound following it, okay? But it has to have a vowel sound. So onset and rhyme are phonemes used to create different sounds. We'll hear our vowel sound in our rhyme. And as we will learn as we go on, rhyme, as in R-I-M-E, rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E, which means they sound alike, right? So we can use them to create rhymes. So just hold on, we'll go on to that later on. For now, thank you for joining me on this first section of phonological awareness. Please stay tuned.